To kick off our discussion of association and causation, we have an illustration of one of the most common misconceptions in all of data science, which is trying to read a cause and effect relationship into a result. So here we have these people, or well, I guess penguins or something, discussing some results that they've read about in the paper. Wearing green clothing has been linked to increased incidence of skin cancer, and yet wearing designer clothing is associated with a longer life expectancy. And the conclusion over here that we have is that if you want to wear green, go with designer green just to be safe, right? Get that longer life expectancy from the designer clothing while still being able to wear green. So both of these statements, wearing green clothing has been linked to an increase in incidence of skin cancer, and people who wear designer clothing tend to have a longer life expectancy. Neither of these actually implies a cause and effect relationship. And yet it's clear that the interpretation of this is that there is a cause and effect relationship, thinking that wearing designer clothing is going to be safer in that you're likely to have a longer life expectancy because you wore the designer clothing. So both of these statements do suggest some kind of association between two variables, whether the two variables are green clothing and skin cancer, or the two variables are designer clothing and life expectancy. One of the things that we do in statistics is we put up some comics and then we try to talk about them enough that they're no longer funny. So we say that two variables are associated if the values of one variable tend to be related to values of the other. And that's what we have in both of these statements. We say that they are causally associated, and there's a lot of other language that we use that's similar to this. We might refer to them as having a cause and effect relationship if we want to be really clear about what we're saying, or that there is causation involved, or that we're talking about causality. So all of these different words with the root word cause in them are getting at the same basic thing. It's the idea that changing the value of one variable influences the value of the other. So the difference between saying people who wear green tend to get more skin cancer and saying if you wear green, you are more likely to wear skin cancer, meaning if I learn about this and I choose to put on a green shirt tomorrow, I'm increasing my chances of getting skin cancer. That is suggesting a causal association. Or more likely, I read this and then I choose to never wear green again because I want to decrease my chance of getting skin cancer. That would again be interpreting this as a cause and effect relationship, when in fact the statement that we were given does not imply that this is a cause and effect relationship. So let's look at a few statements and just try and get at the language itself and whether it is suggesting a causal association or just an association. First one is children who drink skim milk tend to have more obesity problems than children who drink whole milk. We want to not get too caught up in what our personal beliefs are about what's going on here and just look at the statement itself. They tend to have more obesity problems, but it is not saying that drinking skim milk makes children more obese. These two things just tend to go together, and therefore this is just a statement about association, not a causal association. In fact, the most plausible explanation for this is that we all start out drinking whole milk. Right? We generally start out drinking breast milk or formula, and then when we switch over to regular milk, we all start out with whole milk for the most part. That's what pediatricians recommend. And the children who are switched to skim milk tend to be the ones who had some signs of obesity, and that's the first and most obvious thing that a pediatrician might recommend to reduce the number of calories that a child is getting. So there's another explanation that explains why these tend to go together, clearly not suggesting that the milk is what's causing the obesity. All right, we have two statements here now about the same two variables. The variables being statistics homework, taking it seriously, and your test grades. Statistics homework and grades in statistics, right? Test grades, we can assume. So one of these is causal and the other is not. If we think about this for a moment, the causal association usually has a very active word. In this case, the active word is increase. Increase is used as a verb here, not just saying that we tend to see an increase in test grades when we see an increase in taking statistics homework seriously, but increase used as a verb. That's suggesting that there really is a cause and effect going on here. So this one is a causal association. And this other one, we can see that it's missing that really active word, right? Students who take their homework more seriously get better grades. That doesn't necessarily say that taking the homework more seriously causes the grades to get better. This is just an association. And one way to tell the difference when you're looking at wording and trying to tell whether it's suggesting a causal association or just an association is to say, would another explanation for how these two things go together still work with this statement and be consistent with this statement? Right? So another explanation that I could see here is there are students who take the whole course seriously and get good grades and will do whatever it takes to get good grades. And perhaps those students always make sure to do their homework and take their homework seriously. Maybe the homework isn't that related to the course and isn't that related to the test, which of course is not the case for this course, but certainly we've all had courses where maybe there was some degree of consistency, and that might vary from one course to the next. Suppose that that it's true that the homework wasn't helping at all. It still might be true that the students who get good test grades also took their homework seriously because they have lots and lots of just really good habits across the board that made both of those things go up. That explanation doesn't really work with the statement in part B, which says that taking your statistics homework seriously will increase your test grades. That's a little bit contradictory with that alternate explanation. So because this is contradictory to an alternate explanation other than that basic cause and effect of the homework causing the test grades, we would say that this is a causal association. Similarly, looking at texting while driving, increasing your chances of having a car crash. So again, don't think about what you believe, right? Don't think about what you've been told about texting while driving or whether you believe it's causal. Think about the wording and the way it's phrased. Texting while driving is one variable, you do or you don't. Having a car crash is the other variable, you do or you don't. And again, we have this increases, right? We have this really active word here. It increases your chance. So we would say that this is a causal association again. Now, any one of these statements can be reworded to be causal if it started out initially not causal, or vice versa. So it doesn't have anything to do with what the two variables are or whether we think there really is a causal association present. We already have one example here. B and C are the same two variables, but one of these stated in a causal way and one of these stated in a non-causal way. So if we pick any one of A or D and try to rewrite it as sort of the opposite kind of statement, then we can get some practice with what those differences in wording really are. I'll go ahead and take both of them. For A, We have something that's just association and we want to state it as a causal association. That would mean we want to state this in a way that the explanatory variable really does cause the effects that we see in the response variable. So drinking skim milk and obesity, we want to say that skim milk is fattening, or we could certainly write this out in a much longer way than that. So the simplest way to say this is skim milk is fattening. That suggests that the skim milk really is causing weight gain, right? And we could say it lots of other ways. Drinking skim milk will increase obesity problems in children, that sort of thing, kind of going in line with the word increase in both of these other examples. For part D, if we wanted to write that as a just regular association that does not suggest causality, maybe we look at this and we think, well, it's true that people who text while they drive tend to have more car crashes, but maybe that's only true because young people tend to text while they drive more, and young people tend not to be very good drivers because they haven't had a lot of experience and maturity yet. So maybe the texting while driving isn't really the cause, meaning that if those same people who are having lots of car crashes stop texting while driving, maybe there will be no change, right? If there's in fact some other explanation. So there, what we want to say is that people who text while they drive tend to have more car crashes. Or we could even take out this tend to have and just say people who text while they drive have more car crashes. That would also just be a statement about association. So we're not backing off on how certain we are that this relationship is there, but we are backing off from the suggestion of cause and effect between the two variables. Now here's a common misconception, that we can make something not causal by making it less certain, right? If we take the statement, texting while driving increases your chance of having a car crash, which is a causal association, it suggests the texting causes the crash, and we add the word may, right? May increase your chance of having a car crash. This is not a way of making it not a causal association. This is still suggesting cause and effect, just with less certainty. Making the statement sound less certain is not what this is about, right? This is about whether two things tend to rise and fall together because of some other external influence, or whether one of them actually causes the other. Right? As we looked at the skim milk and obesity example, we said maybe this isn't cause and effect because perhaps it's actually the children that have some genetic predisposition toward obesity who start drinking the skim milk to fend that off, right? That it's clearly not the case, if that's the explanation, that drinking skim milk causes obesity. If anything, it's probably the reverse. But it doesn't have to be the reverse either. There's lots of ways to have another explanation for why two things might rise and fall together. So that's really the distinction we're looking for, right? People who text while they drive tend to have more car crashes is an association. Texting while driving may increase your chance of having a car crash is still a cause and effect relationship.